A short time ago, I spoke with the United Kingdom Ambassador Daniel Pruce about the pandemic and current bilateral relations with the Philippines. Let's listen in.
Is conducted.
Okay. Good morning, His Excellency. We would like to introduce to you His Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, Ambassador of the United Kingdom to Manila, Ambassador Daniel Pruce. Good morning, sir. Magandang umaga po.
Good morning, Alma. Magandang umaga. It's a great pleasure to be with you today, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you and your viewers on this day, which, as you know, is the UK-Philippines Friendship Day, 20th of October.
So, as we know, we are in this unprecedented times. So, how is the cooperation between the Philippines and the United Kingdom in relation to efforts in combating this pandemic?
Well, I think, as you say, Alma, this is an unprecedented challenge that governments across the world are facing. And here in the Philippines, back home, in my country, United Kingdom, every effort is being made to protect public health and also to balance these other pressures as well, the economic pressures which are growing around the world as governments and local authorities take steps to protect and preserve the safety of their citizens. As you would expect, this is an issue which we discuss very intensively with our colleagues here in the Philippines, both across government and beyond. And to the extent that we can, we share experience in terms of how we are approaching trying to combat and contain the virus. I think it's very interesting looking at the experiences of both our countries in terms of national measures alongside localized measures and working out how to get that balance right and ensuring that interventions to protect people are actually being taken at the most appropriate and most effective level. And during my time here, I've been very impressed at the steps that have been taken by central government working in partnership with the LGUs, even at barangay level, to ensure that sort of localized, targeted response. I mean, more generally, as you can imagine, the work of the embassy, which still remains very active. We are still fully functioning as an embassy. Most of us are working from home, working remotely, like many organizations, but we are still doing full breadth of things that you would expect an embassy to be doing. But in recent months, we've taken steps to refocus all of our work so that it is relevant to the challenges and the issues that both our countries are facing in the context of COVID. So looking at our assistance programs, our bilateral collaborations, the work that we're doing on the economy, and adjusting all of that to reflect the particular challenges that we face at the moment. An area which I think has been particularly valuable has been collaboration between our two countries under a program of development that we have here called the Prosperity Fund. And within that Prosperity Fund, we have a particular strand that's focusing on health collaboration. So we have, for example, set in place a number of initiatives to work with particular institutions, such as University of the Philippines, or particular cities or provinces. So we've just signed a memorandum of understanding with Learn From Each Other in terms of protecting and developing our healthcare sectors and healthcare systems at such a challenging time. We have a program of webinars involving a range of experts from the Philippines, from international organizations, from the UK as well, to underpin and support that information and expertise exchange. So I think there's a lot of shared activity underway, a lot of learning from each other, and I think also a recognition that we continue to face challenging times. So recognizing the enormous value we can get from these conversations in both directions, I think is very important as our countries navigate their way through the period ahead.
And I know that the United Kingdom is also active with regards to vaccines, discovering vaccines. Yes. Could you give us an update of the UK's work on the development of the COVID-19 vaccines?
Absolutely, yes. And I think the United Kingdom is very, very committed to doing all we can to not only support the development of vaccines, maybe more than one, but also to ensure that those vaccines, when developed, are available to as many people around the world as possible. So I think the key, which is shaping our approach, is to ensure that vaccines are safe, that they are effective, and that they're accessible as well. And our work on that side, I think, has probably taken two strands of activity forward. So on the one hand, British researchers and British companies were involved in the development of a number of vaccine projects around the world. Probably the most advanced of those is a collaboration between researchers at the University of Oxford and the British-Swedish company AstraZeneca. And that vaccine is now up to stage 3 clinical trials. So that's the most advanced stage of trialing, which is large-scale human trialing. I am not an expert in this field at all, so I don't pretend to have any sort of technical knowledge, but my understanding is the trialing is progressing well, and also that it's being conducted in conformity with the usual levels of transparency that you would expect. And you will have seen, it was widely reported some weeks ago, one person involved in one of the trials fell ill. And quite rightly, that information was released publicly, the trials were paused, the case was examined very closely and very independently. Conclusion was reached that the trials could safely resume. And I think we've seen similar instances with some of the other trials around the world. And I think that illustrates how important it is to ensure trust and confidence in these various vaccines that are under development, that the process of research, the process of trialing is conducted very openly and very transparently. So I think, the AstraZeneca-Oxford collaboration is a very important area where UK expertise is making a contribution to what is a global effort to find a vaccine. And of course, AstraZeneca is a company that's well established here in the Philippines and is known very well to Filipinos. So that's the first strand of activity. The second strand relates to this question around access. And if I can use the term vaccine multilateralism, that is something which the UK is very firmly committed to. And I think it's important that alongside the various individual projects that are underway, the international community ensures that we are supporting the mechanisms in place to guarantee fair and equitable access to all countries once we have a vaccine or vaccines that are proven to be safe and effective. So the key mechanism for that is the COVAX facility, and the work that the World Health Organization are taking forward to ensure equitable access. The UK is supporting COVAX. I know the governments of the Philippines are engaged in COVAX as well. And I think that's a really important aspect of this determination that we all have to make sure that vaccines are not only developed quickly and safely and that they're effective, but that when we have them, that they are then available on an equitable and fair basis to those who need them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sir. Another thing, it's not just COVID-19 that is really affecting the world right now. It's also climate change.
Yes.
So can you tell us about the 26th Conference of Parties, the COP26 that the UK will be hosting? Has it been moved because of the situation?
So yes, the Conference of the Parties, meeting number 26, or COP26, as we call it in shorthand, has been put back because of the disruption of the coronavirus pandemic. But the United Kingdom will be hosting the COP26 talks in the UK, in the city of Glasgow, in Scotland, in November of next year, November 2021. And although that seems like a long way away, we are already working very, very hard with our partners around the world to deliver a successful outcome, because COP26 is addressing one of the most fundamental issues that any generation could face. This is about the future of our planet. It's about the safety and well-being of our children and our children's children. So we are already working very, very actively to prepare for what we hope will be a successful COP26. And that includes here in the Philippines, where we are very energetically engaged with partners across governments and beyond at national and local level, helping to ensure that the Philippines and the UK both make significant contributions in partnership to a good outcome at COP26. And I think this is, it's worth remembering the breadth of the challenge that we face. When he launched our chairmanship of the climate change talks, which was many months ago now, my Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, set this in the context of humanity's relationship with nature. This is not a specific niche issue. This covers, the full breadth of how humanity exists on Earth in partnership and harmony with the natural environment, and achieving a balance which we have lost in recent decades. So it encompasses everything. And if you look at some of the key areas that we'll be focusing on in COP26, you can see how it touches all sorts of life. So obviously at the center of the discussions, you have the questions of energy, how we generate energy. And reality is changing there. It's striking to see how countries are progressively moving away from using coal to meet their energy needs. Obviously, and this is one of the challenges of the talks, countries are in different circumstances, have different needs, have different levels of access to different sources of power. But I think the trend is very striking. In the UK, just as an example, earlier this year, we went through 67 days straight without using any coal at all. So that's over 2 months, which is, I think, pretty remarkable for a dynamic economy with lots of economic activity. To be able to draw our power from renewable sources for 67 days is very striking. And the UK is not alone in being able to make that transition. So I think energy and where we all get our energy from is a really important element of addressing climate change. We'll also be looking at transport and how we can support the transition towards zero emission vehicles. Because so many of the cars we drive, the buses we take, the trains we sit on, are themselves generating emissions. So the more that we can do, both as private individuals, but also as governments, to strengthen that sector, the better. And, I've had great conversations here in the Philippines. I was talking just recently to Transport Secretary Tugade about the work that's underway here to support the use of zero emission vehicles, including the e-jeepney, which I think is a very exciting project that's underway. Mm-hmm. And then alongside that, Alma, we're looking at how you can build your ability to adapt and build your resilience to address the impacts of climate change, how we can draw from nature so that some of the solutions to these problems are actually based in nature rather than technology, which I think is a very exciting area and very relevant to many countries around the world. And then that's the final point I'll mention, just as an illustration, is taking forwards our work around the financing of all this activity, because ultimately all of these things come with a cost. In the United Kingdom, we are fortunate to be host of the City of London, one of the UK's leading financial centres, and that's enabled us to build up quite an experience in looking at ways that you can stimulate financing of sustainable projects and green finance. So that is an integral part of COP26 as well, is ensuring that alongside these great initiatives and ideas and ambition for the future, we've developed robust mechanisms to deliver the financing for them.
Mm-hmm. As to Philippines, United Kingdom bilateral ties or relations, what are the latest projects now, His Excellency, and programs that our two governments are currently working on?
Well, there's lots, and it's tribute to our relationship that there are so many areas where we are working together in partnership. We have always had a very strong trade and investment relationship, and that continues to go from strength to strength. Last year, our trade investment was worth well over £2 billion, which is an increase on previous years. So that remains very robust, and we've spoken about some of the companies that are doing great work in both directions. You've got over 200 British companies present and active here in the Philippines. In the UK, we're seeing growing numbers of Filipino companies investing and establishing a presence there. Jollibee have just opened their second restaurant in the UK. So alongside London, we now have a Jollibee restaurant in Liverpool, which is fantastic. So more people in the UK can get access to a bit of chicken joy and a cheesy yum burger, which I think is a great step forwards. But alongside that really great trade and investment relationship, we are collaborating very effectively on some of the challenges that both our countries face. So just as an example, we signed back in 2017 a memorandum of understanding between our defence departments. And that's opened the way for increasing partnership, collaboration, sharing of training between the defence services in both our countries, which I think has been really important. We're working together in areas relevant to counter-terrorism. We have developed a partnership which is very powerful, dealing with the terrible problem of the online sexual exploitation of children. And both our law enforcement agencies in the UK, working with those here in the Philippines, are able to address that issue, both in terms of the production of the imagery, but also the consumption of it as well. And that's proving to be extremely effective. And then on the world stage, we're working together increasingly closely to tackle these big global issues, such as climate change, which we were discussing just now. So I think there's a very broad and expanding range of areas where we work together in partnership, and areas which are to the benefit of both our countries.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And then next week, sir, will be the UK-Philippine Friendship Week. Can you share us, or is it this week? Can you share us some of the activities that will be held for this special occasion?
So yes, we celebrate our Friendship Day every year on October the 20th, and we always have a number of activities around it to celebrate that. This year, of course, those activities will be virtual rather than physical, but that's the reality of the environment that we are all living and working within at the moment. This year we've identified a number of individuals who have made significant personal contributions to the relationships between our two countries, and we'll be highlighting and profiling their experience, and that's including people both in the Philippines and in the UK. And I should say, Alma, that I think I've talked quite a bit about the relationships between our governments, which are strong, and next year we'll be celebrating 75 years of diplomatic relations between our two countries. But I think what really binds us together is the relationships, the partnerships between our peoples. In the United Kingdom, we are fortunate to have over 200,000 Filipinos who live, work and study in the UK. We have growing numbers of British nationals coming to the Philippines for tourism, for work. We have over 20,000 who are settled here and living very happily integrated into the local community. So those people-to-people links, I think, are very strong, and are what keep us very much together in a close collaboration. We have a similar outlook on the world. We are both island nations. You have over 7,000 islands here in the Philippines. We have over 6,000 islands in the UK. So there's already a similarity. We are traditionally open to the outside world. And I think that means we and our peoples have shared and similar perspectives in many regards. So I think it's a genuine friendship between two countries that genuinely have a lot in common and well-established partnerships and friendships. And if I could just mention one further illustration of that, amongst those couple of 100,000 Filipinos who are working in the UK, we have over 20,000 in our National Health Service. So doctors, nurses, specialists, consultants, making an enormous contribution to the NHS, making an enormous contribution to our wider society. But at the moment, what they are doing is absolutely critical to my country's response to COVID. They genuinely are on the front line of the way my country is dealing with COVID-19. And they are not only bringing incredible levels of professional skill and expertise and commitment to the really, really tough work they're doing at the moment, but these wonderful qualities of empathy and emotional support for the patients that they're dealing with. So we count ourselves very, very fortunate to have such a large contingent of Filipinos working within our National Health Service.
Mm-hmm. So how are they, can I ask, sir, how are they coping? Do you have any word on how our Filipino health service are coping with this situation?
So I think in common with healthcare workers around the world, this is a time of great demand, and they are all extremely busy, and I'm sure that brings with it stresses and strains as well. It must be professionally and emotionally exhausting work that they are engaged in at the moment. But I also know that the NHS is very committed to ensuring the safety, both physical and the mental well-being of everyone who works within it. So, I would hope that they are receiving the levels of support that they feel they need. And I know also, outside of the hospitals and the healthcare organizations within which they work, the social and family networks that they have would also be supporting them. And I can't stress enough the extent to which we all recognize the enormous contribution they're making to the United Kingdom's response to COVID, and how much we appreciate that.
True. Here in the Philippines, our students and teachers, parents are still adjusting to the new protocols in learning. I was wondering how the UK in general is coping with remote teaching and learning, and how does the new school year look like over there? Could you give us a glimpse?
So I think the way our schools and universities are approaching delivering lessons, delivering education is first and foremost to prioritize pupil and student safety. So these protocols around social distancing, hand washing, wearing masks are very, very conscientiously observed. We're seeing, for example, in our universities, we're increasingly seeing a combination of blended learning. So some remote learning, some distance learning, but also some face-to-face tuition where that can be conducted safely. And I think, with each day that passes, with each week that goes by, procedures and protocols are being finessed. The key thing, I think, is to give pupils and students, the experience of an education which is obviously critical to their futures, and in which they and their parents, their families have such a strong interest. But doing that in a way which is as safe as it can possibly be, in the present circumstances.
Sir, do you have any last message to our viewers right now during these unprecedented times?
So I think I would simply, firstly, celebrate the strong ties between our two countries, which are getting stronger day by day, week by week, month by month, and to thank everyone in the Philippines for the contributions that they're all making to cementing that close friendship and partnership between our countries. I haven't mentioned education, I haven't mentioned students, but we are working very actively to ensure prospective students based here in the Philippines who might want to go to the UK are able to get the opportunity to do that. And growing numbers are choosing the UK to continue their education, either undergraduate, postgraduate level, which I think is great. And that helps to ensure that the partnerships and relationships for the future will thrive. Mm-hmm. My second thought would be to ask everyone in the UK and in the Philippines, to continue the collaboration and partnership that we have in place as we deal with these challenges born of the coronavirus pandemic, and to stay safe as well, and to all continue to do everything we can to look after ourselves. In the UK, we talk about hands, face, and space. So, washing our hands, covering our face, and keeping space between us, that's so important, both to protect ourselves and to protect our loved ones. And that we should all sort of take care for the future. So my final thought would be ingat po kayo.
Very much, sir, for all that insight, and thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, Ambassador. Thank you so much.
Maraming salamat, Alma. It's a great pleasure to speak to you, and stay safe. Ingat ka.
Ambassador, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.